you about essentially how to crush the social algorithms that control what you receive. And by that, I mean that control who you're able to reach to grow your audience, regardless of what kind of channel you're making, and what kind of content do you receive on any particular account that you have. These things are all connected, and you'll notice that, for example, if you have, let's say you make a brand new social profile on a platform you've never been on before, or on a social profile on a platform that you've never used that email to create your account with before, or that you've never logged in through a single sign-on platform like Google or Yahoo or Microsoft or Facebook, or any of those things that you can log in with, right? X or whatever, Twitter. Um, the moment you sign on, the moment you choose your sign-on method, if your sign-on method is tied to another platform and they have access to that, they know which other platform you're tied to already, and they know everything about you from that platform just by looking up your email address or your social sign-on username. So if you want to create an actually blank user, you need to create an actually blank user that's not tied to anything. So, for example, create a brand new, email address, preferably on a network that is not Google, using a browser that is not made or a derivative of something made by Google, right? So don't use Chrome, don't even use Brave, don't use anything, don't use Chromium, nothing. Use a completely separate browser. Something like Safari, or whatever private browser you have. Browser that respects your privacy. Don't use Microsoft Edge or whatever. Use something that's not gonna take all your info and sell it to an advertiser, right? And if you do, make sure you're using VPNs and stuff to keep your privacy. And then create whatever profile you want on whatever platform you want, and don't connect anything that you already have to it if you want to create a blank slate. If you want to connect that to other platforms, use only that email address that you use to create that platform on the other ones, or use whatever social connector you can if you want to connect them, because the moment you connect, it already influences what you're going to see on that brand new platform, right? The fact that you sign on, by the way, with a new blank platform, okay, how does it work? When you sign on to a blank platform, to a platform with a blank account that they know nothing about, right? Essentially, you're a logged out user who's logged in for the first time, right? But if you were to look at it in a logged out user format, if they were to allow you to do that, some do, some don't, right? Like if you go to Google and you search for something without logging in, it's called a logged out user search, right? So Google serves you essentially the best rated, most popular, generic, general information for each search you're pulling. It'll still try to pull as much information about you as possible. So if it can find your IP, it'll base information, some information based on your IP, your location. If it can find any other thing about you, what browser you're using, what OS you're using, whatever, it'll use information it can to customize as much as possible, even a logged out user experience. But if you can keep your system essentially clean, use a non-Google browser, mask your IP, and all this kind of stuff, you can get a generic, or a mostly generic, logged out user experience on Google. Not every social media profile will let you do that. Many of them will force you to log in to see anything, right? Like you can't really see anything inside of Instagram or Facebook or X or whatever without actually logging in. Yeah, there's some things you can see, but you can't really surf around their site and see a whole bunch of stuff without logging in. Right? Some of them won't let you see anything without logging in. Some of them don't let any of their information even come up in search engines. or it's greatly redacted, or they hide information that's more than a few weeks old or whatever, because anything that's older than that in social media is like ancient news, right? Which I know sounds crazy, because like if you post something that's great and glorious for all time, it should stay there forever. But because of the nature of how internet search works, what people tend to click on, they've had a bunch of years already to figure out. By they, I include myself as part of the people that have figured out ways to optimize what people click on, which again is not always in the best interest of the user. It's usually in the best interest of the company. Just to be clear, like, yes, ideally you want to give the user something that's in their best interest, but in reality, especially because a lot of shareholders tend to care more and more about profits than they do about making the best product possible, right? Especially once the pioneering spirit is gone, the innovative spirit is gone, and it's just all about the money. They don't really care about making the best product possible. Why did Google give up "Don't be evil" as their slogan or motto? Why did Google change Google search results from being controlled by the innovators to the ad people? Right? Google search is now fully controlled by the ad people. Why did Facebook go from a site with no ads to a site that's completely added up to heck? So much so that there's, since many years, literally a thing called the Facebook ad blind spot. That's an actual term, because people don't pay attention to the ads. They literally have a blind spot to them. There's so many of them, like, on every page, right? So why is that? It's because shareholders have gotten increasingly greedy. And by the way, they haven't reflected that in increasing salaries of most employees to proportionally, right? There's still a lot of people get paid in tech roughly the same that they got paid 10 or 15 years ago. Yes, there have been some increases. Yes, it's generally more a little bit, but has it gone up with the increase in profits, let alone inflation? Or the other way around? The increase in inflation, let alone profits? No, not even close, right? If a person today is making double what they made 10 years ago for the same work, which that would be maybe keeping up with the rate of inflation. It would be a bit less, but that would be keeping up with the rate of inflation. But they don't. They'd be extremely lucky if they did. Unfortunately, most people today are making as much, or in many cases even less, than they made 10 years ago. But their cost of living has gone up 100%. So their cost of living has doubled or more from 10 years ago, but their salaries haven't gone up at all. In some cases, they've gone up 5, 10, 15%. But when your cost of living goes up, what is a 15% bump in your salary if your cost of living has gone up 100%? It's nothing. It's effectively a negligible bump, right? So, and it's over 10 years, right? It's a joke. So how do you crush these algorithms? Crush these algorithms by making content that's specifically targeted, if you're trying to grow your audience, specifically targeted to the niche you're trying to reach, and be super laser focused, super specialized about it, as I explained in the last video. That's number one. Number two is, don't consume anything with any channel that you want to use to grow. The only thing you can consume are things related to that in some way, shape, or form. Don't consume anything with those profiles. Make different profiles just to consume content. I'm serious. And they say, yeah, you gotta have realistic. Yeah, you gotta be real. You gotta this. No, actually, you don't. Okay. You need to show that you're super focused with that channel and you don't do anything else with it. It's like a business. Treat it like a business. You don't do anything else with it. Let them see that. Yes, if you have a real channel and you're an organic user and this and that, you're going to look at different things. You're going to watch different things. You're going to consume different things. It's going to impact you. It's going to impact your behavior, all this stuff. But you don't want to do that with a channel you're trying to grow as a business. You want to do that only with channels that you're using as a real organic user. Right? And the reason for that is very simple. You want to make sure that you don't give them any reason to look at your channel and say, oh, that's made by a robot or something. You want it to be super clear that the channel you use for your growth, for your audience building, is specifically targeted towards that and nothing else. Clear? It should be super clear. It should be super clear. Not even a question about it. So that's what I have to say about that. 20, 30, 30. Okay. So anyway, that is basically the method for crushing the algos that control what you see, that control what you receive. They control your audience. They control who you reach. They control what content you get to see when you're consuming content. So the trick is pseudonymity or even anonymity, maintaining it, not giving up the game to the algos that are effectively out to take advantage of your personal information. They're not there to make your experience better. They're just not, okay? They are there to maximize their ROI, as I've said. If it wasn't for the ROI being maximized, they would not care. Right? They'd still be doing whatever they can do to give you the best experience. But that is not what they're doing. That's not even close to their goal. You understand? That's not even close to their goal. Their goal is to maximize the profits they make from you. That's it. That's all they care about. 14. About your best interest. They really do not. Right? Their interest, just so we're clear, they don't care if that offends you. They don't care if you think less of them because of it. They frankly don't care if you don't use their product. If you do use their product, they're going to control you as much as possible. It's that simple. If you don't, you're just wrong. Let's see if this thing connects again. Maybe it connects again? I don't know. Maybe much more. I think this one's with pins and yeah, I need to when you get a product in a store, because you don't want to take a broken version. So you don't want to take a broken version. Oh, that's it. Okay. Yeah. Definitely some bad use. like it should be on it. We'll see. We will see. Hold on. Co vidíte? Já, možná. We got crazy pandemonium. All right. All right. Okay. Card. There you go. Sure. Okay. Shabbat shalom. That's right. That's right. You heard me say it. Anyway, folks, that is how you crush the algos, right? Is you don't just make the content for your specific niche. You know, in theory, yes, we will tell you, those of us in the marketing world, that the algos are looking for real people using the channels to do real things. But the truth is, we're also looking for the channels that treat themselves like a business and stay extremely focused on what they focus on and don't necessarily interact with anything else. Okay. Would it have helped to be interacting with your channel on other places in comments or whatever 10, 15 years ago on YouTube and Facebook and X, etc.? Yeah. Does it still help? Does it still help on all those platforms? No. The only exception to that is X, which is truly, enforcing crack addiction behavior, with the way that it expects people to interact in order to see any growth if they have a small channel, right? If you know about X, and I've spoken about it at length, X, since a number of months, has been changing their algorithm to require people to do 100 reply guy comments every single day, no exceptions, in order to see any growth. If you have a small channel, meaning anything under 100,000 users, 100 reply guy comments plus anywhere from 1 to 5, and it's usually 1 or 2 is enough, 1 to 5 real posts on your own channel. So we're talking a minimum of 102 posts per day, minimum, 7 days a week. Doesn't matter. You're religious, you don't practice, you don't work on Saturday or Sunday. Too bad, your channel won't get any growth. Right? Now, can you beat that and skip a day by making it 120 every other day? Yeah, in theory you can. But in reality, good luck. Because they monitor you every day. And if you don't interact every single day, you don't get the growth. Even if you do it 6 days a week, they don't care. Why do they do that? They're enforcing crack behavior. They want people to be addicted to their platform. They're enforcing you getting a hit of endorphin every time someone hearts your comment or comments on your comment or shares your comment or whatever they call it, reposting or retweeting or whatever, whatever it's called. They're literally creating dopamine hits for you, feeding you a rush of endorphins when you see something that you like that's good, positive, and feeding you negative. They're basically blasting you with the chemicals in your brain, and they know they're doing it because that's literally what algorithm software engineers do. They work with well-known psychographic tools that have been around for many years, that are developed based on psychology and even psychiatry, to develop psychographic profiles, as in psychological graphical profiles of people, to know the user's intent even before the user knows. Okay? That's what we've been doing for many years in marketing. We've been using search algorithms and user intent and many more things that, by the way, are more advanced than just user intent. Like, we can place a product in front of the user at specific times before they even know they want it, based on their habits, based on their behaviors, based on the information they share about themselves, based on the content they consume, the content they react to, how they react to it, the content they produce, how they market it, like as individuals or as members of an SMB or as members of a larger company, how they promote themselves. We can tell all these things. We can read all this information. It's because it's all stored electronically, not because of some magical spells. Oh, the algorithms can magically know about you. No, you're telling the connected computers what you think about yourself. You're telling a giant network of interconnected databases that copy as much from each other as they can and use that to their advantage. When you log into, some website, some random third-party e-commerce site or hobby site or sports site or whatever, and you use your Google to sign on, you don't think that they're getting information from that single sign-on information? You don't think Google's getting that information? You don't think that Google's advertisers are able to target that information? Like to your zip code? Like to your city block? Or the tribe, village, hut you live in? They are. Okay? They are able to do that. That is why people still agree to pay Google to advertise on Google's platform. And the same thing with Facebook's platform. Facebook has incredibly great targeting. Not as great as it used to be honest. Like, there are some things, some demographics that you used to be able to target that you no longer can. Which is frankly a shame, because it makes it a lot harder, especially for startups to grow. But guess what? They don't want startups to grow. They want startups to spend money on their ad platform, getting almost what they need, but not quite, so that they basically waste money and eventually go out of business, in the same way that retail traders are invited to trade on exchanges that give them almost what they need in terms of information, but not quite, so that they think they're making smart trading decisions, but they're not, so that they eventually, slowly but surely, over a period of about 90 days, get wrecked, and new blood has to come in with new money to keep the pipes flowing. And that is exactly what the financial industry does. In the same way that the content industry does that, in the same way that the social media industry does that, in the same way that every single industry commoditizes the people that are its customers to the degree that eventually all you are seen as not even a customer. You are a profit node. Collectively, you and all your fellow customers or users of a site or of a product or a platform or of a marketplace or whatever, you are the profit center collectively. You create the profits for Meta and Netflix and X and Google and, every single marketplace, eBay, and transaction sites like PayPal, and exchanges like, Thinkorswim, right, or Charles Schwab, or Binance, or Coinbase, or Kraken, or all these places. You are the profit center. If you don't use their services, they don't have a business. And in the case where the information you give them is the asset that they use to trade, right? You give Facebook and Google and all these big social platforms your credential information online, and the exchanges you use do the same thing, and any healthcare providers you use online, everything you use online takes your credentials. If they sell ads, they use those credentials, which means your credentials are their money printer. The more credentials they have, the more money they can charge for the ads. Now, I'm not saying this to diss them or trash them. That is their business model. I'm not doing it to rip them apart over it. I've worked for directly and as a service provider pretty much every single one of these companies. Many of them are great companies. Most of them, even. Some of them do some kind of not so great things from time to time, or even more than time to time. Does it make it wrong what they're doing? No, not if they're upfront about it. Does it make it wrong what they're doing if they're not upfront about it? If they're hiding the fact? Yeah, then it makes it wrong. But in pretty much all these cases, you agree to the terms and services, so the terms of service and the rules and the conditions and all that stuff. And you might not read those things, but you should. Now, you might tell me, nobody has the time to read that stuff. Okay, if nobody has the time to read that stuff, then you really shouldn't use it. And even if you do read it and you object to it, you probably shouldn't use it. But you're going to anyway because everybody does, and that's the big network, and that's how you want to get in touch with people. Well, that's your risk. Your risk is that they're going to take your information and not use it correctly. They've demonstrated that they do that a lot in certain companies. More importantly, they demonstrated that they take profit from the information you give them. So, if you want to continue to be a profit center for them, keep doing what you're doing. If it's just using the systems normally. If you want to profit from them, turn the tables around. Decide very consciously, what information you agree to give them, what information you refuse to give them, control what information you share with them, create completely separate accounts for different topics that you want to control, that you want to have access to, that you want to share, and treat it like a business. It may take more time, it may take more effort, but ultimately, it's worth it. Okay, that's it for now. Happy content manipulation. Cheers.